confidence that the tight stance of monetary policy and the stability in the exchange rate of the naira should continue to positively weigh in on price developments and inflation. Committee reaffirmed its commitment to maintaining price stability, which is crucial to sustainable economic growth and development. The committee welcomed the review of the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan in an effort to realize the objectives of the plan. In the same vein, committee urges a quick passage of the 2018 appropriation bill by the National Assembly so as to keep fiscal policy on track and deliver the urgently needed reliefs in terms of employment and growth of the economy. On financial stability, committee noted the concentration of non-performing loans in a few sectors, but observed that the overall condition and outlook for the banking system was stable as deposit money banks' balance sheets remained strong. This assertion is strengthened by the developments in the national accounts and the expectations that the affected sectors are returning to growth. Nonetheless, committee urged for strengthening of supervisory oversight and early warning systems in order to promptly identify vulnerabilities and proactively manage the emerging risks in the banking system. The committee further observed that government was increasing debt, both domestically and externally, thus crowding out the private sector. The committee's decision. In arriving at its decision, the committee appraised potential policy options in terms of the balance of risks. The committee also took note of the gains made so far as a result of its earlier decisions, including the stability in the foreign exchange market and the moderate reduction in inflation, and thus extensively deliberated the options regarding whether to hold, to tighten, or to ease the policy stance. While tightening would strengthen the impact of monetary policy on inflation with complementary effects of capital flows and exchange rate stability, it nevertheless could also potentially dampen the positive outlook for growth and financial stability, as this would constitute a risk to the productive sectors of the economy. On the other hand, whereas loosening would strengthen the outlook for growth by stimulating domestic aggregate demand through reduced cost of borrowing, it could nevertheless aggravate upward trend in consumer prices and generate exchange rate pressures. Committee also feels that loosening would worsen the current account balance of the country through increased importation. On the argument to hold, the committee believes that key variables have continued to evolve in line with the current stance of macroeconomic policy and should be allowed to fully manifest. Members noted that the developments in output and inflation in particular required effective close monitoring in order to gain clarity on the medium-term optimal path of monetary policy. In consideration of the foregoing, the committee decided by a vote of 8-1 to retain monetary policy rate at 14% alongside all other policy parameters. One member voted to reduce the MPR by 100 basis points. Consequently, MPC voted to 1. Retain MPR at 14%, 2. Retain CRR at 22.5%, 3. Retain the liquidity ratio at 30%, and 4. Retain the asymmetric corridor at plus 200 and minus 500 basis points around the MPR. We thank you for listening.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for questions and comments. As I welcome the Director General of Abuja Chamber of Commerce, they are so interested in this, so you're welcome. Yes, just come up here. Please remember our house rule here. Limit your questions to the issues raised in the communique. Just tell us your name, your organization, and one question, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Governor. My name is Emmanuel Uhemohai, business editor for AIT. You talked about structural constraints to credit. Now, I would like you to expatiate on that, and the CBN trying to work with banks on these structural constraints. Talking about credit, I know that banks, about 13 banks are exposed to loans because of a TSALET loan, about $1.2 billion of a TSALET loan. I know UBA, Fidelity is exposed to about $55 million. That's about 17.3 billion naira, GTB and Access. Now, we are also aware that there are talks around that Barclays, because of this exposure, are thinking of pulling out as financial advisors. What is the CBN stance on all these? And finally, sorry, one last question. You are reported to have said that you are optimistic that the inflation rate will get to single digits as at next year. What informs this, your optimism? Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Governor. My name is Biodun Dari from Radio Nigeria. The MPC has repeatedly called on the CBN to advise or encourage banks to lend more to the productive sector of the economy. Now, it's obvious this isn't yielding the desired result. What other options are available to the CBN to ensure that more credit finds its way to especially young businesses?
Good afternoon, Mr. Governor.
Hold on. Yes.
Okay, I'm Nancy Naji, the anchor of Moneyline with Nancy on AIT. The first question.